Great to have Ian Castleberry with us. Of course, our Major League Baseball update presented by Happy Hill Restaurant. Ian Castleberry, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Hey, really good. Lots happening as always, and baseball-wise, that's what we've got you. But we're going to start first with a football topic, Ian, because Philip Adams, his family has donated his brain to CTE research. There will be an autopsy on his body. This was the former NFL player who shot and killed 6 people, including a doctor, his wife, and their two of their grandchildren. This is just a tragic situation, and Ian, a reason might be that Adams reportedly was not taking his medication, or maybe that's not the issue. But the thing is, hopefully we'll get some answers when they look at his brain.
Yeah, we don't know yet. You know, there are reports that you said he stopped taking his medication. I've seen reports that maybe the reason that Adams was upset with the doctor was because the doctor stopped giving him medicine that he needed. So we won't know the motive, most likely, unfortunately, but what we can find out is whether or not Adams suffered from CTE. And as we talked about on Thursday, this is a test that can only be done post-mortem because the brain has to be dissected as part of the autopsy. So the Medical University of South Carolina is partnering up with Boston University, which has a center that does research into CTE. And they're going to examine Adams' brain to determine if indeed he was suffering from CTE, and that's what caused him to shoot 5 people. You know, his family said he'd been displaying escalating temper, he'd been neglecting his personal hygiene. Neighbors said, you know, there was some strange behavior as well. So was that indicative of a serious brain injury that he suffered? We'll find out, but it won't be for months.
Yeah, and Charlie, I know we've, close to home for you. Yeah. You know people that were coaches with, you as well, and I'm sure they're equally as stunned by this at all. Do you think this might be a case, too, of the adjustment from the NFL to regular life?
See, that's one of the things when they talk about CTE, you look at guys and you think they've just not adjusted from not being able to play football anymore and have to go on with regular life. And Philip looks like he's had trouble adjusting to life after football. Again, not to defend what he did at all, but he was as good a kid as I've ever coached, ever been around. Just good kid, great family. I'm just devastated by the whole thing, and you feel so bad for the victims here. But like I say, I'm at a loss, Pat. I'm anxious to see. I've never been a big proponent of blame everything in your life on CTE, but I'm sure anxious to see the results of these tests.
Absolutely, we are as well. As we'll move on now to some baseball headlines there, Coach, thank you very much. I know it's not an easy discussion for you and certainly can understand that. Padres pitcher, Joe Musgrove, Ian, who, by the way, is a local boy, throws a no-hitter against the Rangers. All right, Ian, who is Joe Musgrove?
Joe Musgrove is a 28-year-old pitcher. This is his 6th season in the major leagues. He spent his first 2 seasons with the Houston Astros and the past 3 seasons with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Was traded to the Padres during the off-season. And this is only his 2nd start of the season for the Padres, and he throws the first no-hitter in team history. The Padres have been in existence since 1969. That's about 8,700 games played, and they have never thrown a no-hitter. Joe Musgrove, the first guy. And, he's a San Diego. He grew up in San Diego. He was a Padres season ticket holder. Here he is throwing the first no-hitter in team history.
Wow, good for him. And this is the next question, Charlie. This is a dandy one. So Ian, name a catcher who has caught 2 no-hitters for 2 different teams.
Yeah, that's another great footnote to this game. Victor Caratini, who was the catcher for Joe Musgrove on Friday night, also caught the last no-hitter in Major League Baseball last season, Alec Mills' no-hitter with the Cubs. So with that, Caratini becomes the first catcher, and I know this is kind of slicing thin here on stats here, but he's the first catcher to catch consecutive no-hitters, but for different teams. So for the Cubs last year, the Padres this year. Now, 10 times a catcher has caught consecutive no-hitters, but for the same team. The last time that happened was in 2013, Ryan Hannigan for the Reds caught no-hitters by Homer Bailey, one in 2012, one in 2013. But Victor Caratini carving out a unique place for himself in baseball history.
God, no hitting. I mean, and to be a catcher behind the plate during a no hitter. I mean, you're covering two different roles. You're trying to make sure your pitcher is okay, not freaking out at later in the innings if this is still going. You're an emotional support system, but also calling the right pitches, knowing the batters, doing your homework. There's so much that goes into that.
And there's so much superstition in baseball when you've got a no hitter going.
I know.
It has to be that's a heck of a trivia question.
Oh my goodness! And what's interesting, Ian, right, is I think Charlie brings it up, rather well. Is it is a great trivia question, but at the same time, it's like the stress that goes on with these pitchers. Whether they're just wrapping their head in a towel or just going up and down the dugout. But one thing is for sure, they don't want anyone talking to them. It's just like, leave me alone. The most gregarious pitcher suddenly becomes an introvert during a no hitter, and you don't blame them for that, for sure. Go ahead, Ian.
Well, you were talking about calling pitches and the pressure that comes with that. There was sort of a funny story after the game where Musgrove admitted that there were a couple times where he shook off signs from Caratini, like they have this signal between them, like if they call a certain pitch, but Musgrove wants it to a different side of the plate, inside versus outside, or vice versa. And Musgrove was shaking Caratini off, and then it occurred to him, was like, wait, things are going really well here. I should listen to my catcher.
That's great. I love that. You see that battle between pitcher and catcher sometimes, like the pitcher just shaking off, no. Then the catcher calls timeout and goes up there and say, all right, we got to figure this out, man.
I always think of Bull Durham when I see that.
Which part? There's like so many lines there, but no, it's so true. I mean, you get these guys, they shake it off, and then the catcher has to go out to make sure they need to reset there. You get back on the same page. It's fascinating if you get into the ins and outs of baseball. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys on the DC Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines and our Major League Baseball update presented by our friends at Happy Hill Restaurant. All right, Ian, this is interesting. After failing to buy the Mets with J-Lo, are they still together, by the way? Alex Rodriguez is going Great Lakes at two non-baseball franchises, Ian. What's going on there?
Yeah, sources, me reading the New York Post confirms that J-Lo and A-Rod are, in fact, still together.
Okay.
They had a rocky moment there where it looked like they were going to break up, but it sounds like these two kids are going to keep trying.
Thank you for your intense research on that, Ian.
Yes.
He dug deep.
Alex Rodriguez, yes, is partnering up with a former Walmart executive, Mark Lohr. They are going to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx for a reported price of $1.5 billion. As you mentioned, A-Rod he was part of a group that tried to buy the New York Mets last year before Steve Cohen got the ultimate winning bid. So Glenn Taylor, the current owner of the Timberwolves and the Lynx, has been trying to sell those teams for a couple of years, and from reports, they hit it off really well with A-Rod and Lohr, and the deal came together pretty quickly. The sale still needs to be approved by NBA team owners. And apparently the plan is for there to be sort of a 2-year transition process where, Taylor will kind of show A-Rod and Lohr the ropes of ownership in the NBA, what they need to do, and that before they take over ownership in a couple of years.
Man, okay, so it is confirmed from Ian Castleberry, A-Rod and J-Lo are together. Well, I feel like I can move on.
News.
Yeah, I feel like I can move on now, Charlie, with the segment here.
I hear you.
By the way, speaking of the Mets, Charlie, you'll love this. Ian, why was Mets pitcher Marcus Stroman complaining about an umpiring call that really had nothing to do with a play on the field?
Marcus Stroman was upset because Sunday's game between the Mets and Marlins started while it was raining, and the umpires called the game after just 9 pitches, 7 minutes into the game. They decided to postpone the game, and then after a 2-hour, 10-minute delay, the game was postponed. They'll make it up during a doubleheader on August 31st, but Stroman upset that, he warmed up, prepared for the game.
Yeah.
It was apparent, according to players, that this game wasn't going to be played, or at least wasn't going to start on time, yet it's the home team's decision. So the Mets decided, let's play this game, even though it looked like it was going to be postponed. And sure enough, almost immediately, again, 9 pitches after the game began, the umpires postponed the game. So Stroman upset that he essentially burned a start. He can't. He certainly wasn't going to pitch again after a 2-hour, 10-minute delay. But now with the game that's a game that they'll have to make up.
Charlie, I don't blame Stroman. He's a bit of a wacky guy, but I don't blame him for being upset about this.
Sometimes weather can't be controlled. When I was coaching golf, we were in the regional down in Shelby, and we get there. We've got 8 o'clock tee-off time, and it's pouring rain. I'm not talking about raining. It is pouring rain, and is there a delay? No.
You're like, what?
Man, come on now. There's water everywhere. No delay. So we go warm up, hit balls on the range, putt, soak to the bone, come back, ready for our tee time. We're going to delay for 2 hours. Oh. Wait a minute.
Yeah, man.
So now we're trying to find dry clothes for kids and stuff. It was interesting. We weren't happy.
I can imagine. I mean, I by the way, it would have been terrible. But did you ended up playing the round that day?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
At least to make you play 2 holes and to go, you know what, we're gonna postpone this for tomorrow. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I used to play like City League softball, and man, it could be a tornado, and you're gonna get that game in, darn it. And, I was never real happy about that, especially if you didn't really feel like playing softball on a Sunday afternoon. You're like, cool, it's raining. All right, you know what? There's no way we're going to be able to play this game. And the city's like, oh, no, we're going to play this game. I get it, Marcus Stroman, for sure.
I'm not sure I've ever seen a game called off after 9 pitches.
Yeah, that's a real. But I mean, they're looking at a map. See, there's a thing that's called the weather map now, and it's pretty accessible through your phone, or if you're a Major League Baseball umpire, they've got it there in the dugout for you, and you can certainly see it coming. I'm sure there was maybe some yellow in there, which means not good. But yeah, that to me is a no-brainer. I don't mind Marcus Stroman going off on the umpires like that. He's a talented guy. He wants to get in there and compete, and that was not helping things. As Ian Castleberry joins the Wise Guys on the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines, presented by Happy Hill Restaurant. Hey, Ian, what did you make of the umpires missing a 9th-inning call on that close play at home plate between the Phillies and the Braves? We should point out it was a bang-bang play, and the umpires went to instant replay. And so they had 2 opportunities to make the correct call, once at home plate, not once, but now twice with instant replay. Yet they came back, and after the replay clearly showed the Phillies runner did not touch home plate, they said, we're good, we're upholding this. The Phillies win 7-6. The Braves starting pitcher basically called this an embarrassment, and I felt that was actually kind of kind to the umpires.
Yeah, Drew Smiley was a starter for the Braves and said his quote was, it's embarrassing. Why even have replay if you won't overturn that? Now, in real time, you're right. I mean, it's a bang-bang play. It's a difficult play for the home plate umpire to make, but you have the replay. This is a Sunday night baseball game for ESPN. Supposedly, they would have more camera angles than maybe for a regular season game on a regional network. It certainly appeared that the Phillies' Alec Baum, that his foot did not touch home plate. It maybe hovered over it. Maybe they're saying like the spikes of his cleat scraped home plate. I guess that's what they're saying, or at least they thought it was not conclusive enough to overturn the call. Remember, the call on the field was safe. I thought when I looked at the replay that maybe they were saying that Travis d'Arnaud, the Braves catcher, he kind of kneed Alec Baum's foot out of the way before it could touch home plate, and maybe that's why they called him safe. But looking at the rule, if the catcher can block the plate if he has the ball. d'Arnaud had the ball, so he could have blocked the plate, and that's what he did. He used his knee to kind of push Baum's foot out of the way. But it certainly looked like a blown call, and I know we're in April here. I heard you guys and Chris Smith talking about this. You think a game in April might not matter, but it might matter if it's a close race between the Phillies and the Braves toward the end of the season. This is a game. The Braves are now 4-5. The Phillies were 6-3 coming out of that game, so this could have been a first-place tie. The Braves are off to a slower start than I think they expected. They're 2-4 against the Phillies so far this season, so that is potentially a big loss for the Braves.
And it did look like the catcher's knee prevented the foot from going across the base.
It was a great play by the catcher, and as Ian said, he had the ball, so it was his right to do that. Ian, what do you think Major League Baseball is? I mean, I don't think anyone is expecting them to maybe comment on it. Maybe they should, but I got to imagine there's going to be a little a little talking to with that umpiring crew?
Yeah, I'm sure baseball has to address this somehow. I mean, even if they're going to stick by their umpires, stick by their replay officials, at least say something like, we looked at the call, we think the correct call was made, or, that the angle wasn't conclusive, even though they had several angles. Brian Snicker said he saw an angle that was conclusive, that Baum's foot didn't touch home plate. But unless it's something where baseball thinks it's just an egregious miss, which I know a lot of Braves fans are going to say it was indeed an egregious miss, that I don't think they're going to make a comment or criticize their umpires. Maybe there'll be a fine. We'll see down the road, but I expect Major League Baseball to just stick with the call.
Yeah, and Brian Snicker, by the way, the Braves manager, I mean, he went out, but he didn't really, I don't know. I mean, he was all like, when he was in the post-game press conference, he was all dirty, hairy, all tough, and they're like, well, what did you guys say? He's like, well, I did all the talking. I'm like, dude, you were out there for a limited amount of time. You weren't screaming and yelling. You already tossed your hat up in the air in the dugout, so you didn't have that to throw onto the ground. In my exchange with Matt Jungle, a big baseball fan, saw this play. He's like, wow, Snicker, it's like he's not doing anything. And I went back because I'm like, what's he talking about? And sure enough, man, if I'm Brian Snicker, I'm out there, I'm raising holy you-know-what. But that didn't really happen. And I'm sure the Braves players are fine with it and whatnot. But I thought that would have been an opportunity for him to just let off some steam, let his players know that, hey, I'm with you on this. And I'm sure they know that he is. But it was just kind of weird. That's why if you're listening to Chris's segment, I sent Matt the Sparky Anderson classic umpire when Bernie Carbo was trying to argue a call, and Sparky just said, get out of here. And then he just starts ripping on the umpire. That's how it is done, people.
I was surprised the catcher didn't react more.
Yeah, especially after they came back, and everyone's looking up at the scoreboard in the replay. And it clearly shows that the foot did not touch the base. Wow. Now, that umpire's got some explaining to do. Ian Castleberry, always a treat to catch up with you, my friend. You know that.
No, thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you, Ian. Ian Castleberry, by the way. We want to point out rights for thecomeback.com. Also, awfulannouncing.com. So you can like both on Facebook. And last year, poor guy, he had to cover the Dodgers for SI.com, which means he was up till like 1 or really like 2 in the morning, sometimes later, putting together his story after the Dodgers would, their game would be completed at, 1 a.m. our time. He was exhausted. I remember him telling me, man, I am so done with baseball.
Everybody thinks it's great. You're covering the best team in baseball, but you have to stay up half the night to do it.
From the East Coast, we should point out. That pesky 3-hour time difference.